All right, well, good morning if you're watching this live, if you're attending live. In real time now, we are less than a week before the election. And so I don't know about you, but there's a little bit of stress in the air related to that that you might be picking up on, whether or not you're a devoted watcher of the news or anything. And this is not me trying to get political at all. This is me trying to be proactive in supporting all of us into just really how do we tend to ourselves in a kind, mindful way in the coming week and in the coming weeks to come. And so today's practices I'd like you to consider are going to be like practices within a practice within a practice. So they're going to be, it's like a buffet where we're going to do quite a few things that are all designed to help us determine where our agency might be, like where we can choose to shift something for ourselves or in our small sphere, and then how do we let go even just for a moment or loosen our grip a bit on what we can't. And so we are going to do some really targeted meditation type of practices at the beginning and at the end, and we're going to specifically be doing the yoga for releasing stress stick figure practice that I created during the fall challenge. So if you don't have this, I will send it out in the member email today so you can have a refresher. So you could even print this out or do a screenshot of it and then like, oh, okay, these are the 6 things that I could do just in less than 10 minutes as a whole. Or you could pick and choose, like, I'm just going to do wood chopper breath, or I'm just going to do XYZ. So as we go through today, what I'd encourage you to do is just to have your like mental noting, or if you're a literal note taker, when I take practices with other folks, I almost always have a little notepad next to me because I think I'll remember later and I may or may not remember the nuance of what somebody said, or I want to try this at home. So if you're a note taker, you can always keep a little journal or notepad next to you. But even if that's not the case, make a mental note of what you found helpful, what you noticed shifted your nervous system today. Because what I would really encourage all of us to do is to literally make a plan on a note card or on your phone, however you take notes. And because what happens is this is like a little preamble of getting us ready, right? What happens is when we're under stress, that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn kick in, the 4 Fs. And then this adulting part of our brain that's logical, that can plan ahead, that can see the big picture, that can make great decisions, it goes offline. Like it is on vacation when we are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And there's a really good chance we're probably going to be coming in and out of that state a decent amount. I'm not trying to project any doom and gloom, but just the reality is it can be stressful. Life in general, but there's some extra stress in the air. So that adulting part of our brain goes offline, and the logical things that we know to do for ourselves to help us feel better, like we can't think of them. It's like we don't have access to them in the moment. So with all my coaching clients, I encourage them, whether it's an election stress or a big life change or even just day-to-day stressors, is to have a little mental list of when I'm feeling this way, here are the practices that work for me. When I'm feeling this way, here are the practices that work for me. So again, make some mental notes today. And I would really encourage you to literally make a note card or a note on your phone. And the other thing that I would encourage you to do, I'm doing this too, is to, if there's some specific supplies that help you to stay grounded, to feel supported. So what I'm going to do is make like a little basket at my house. So I have like some specific essential oils that I like that are comforting. I love having like a weighted flax or rice bag that I could heat up in the microwave and like put on my belly or on my shoulders. So that's going to go in the bag. I have some little quote books with poems in them that are going to go in not the bag in the basket. It could be a bag though, but maybe it's a soft blanket. Like, what are the things that help you to feel really tended and cared for? Maybe it's some of your favorite teas or warm drinks. So it could connect, be like the physical representation of what's on your card. So those are some tips that are good like year round, but I wanted to share them with you specifically so that going into the next couple of weeks, we have our tools ready. Our tools are like ready. They're like all sharpened and we know how to use them and we can find them and all those good things. So all that said, we're going to start with a round of tapping, but I'm going to share with you a different version of it. Yeah. So tapping, some of you know, because we did some tapping practices a couple weeks ago, I believe it was. This is a version I learned from Mary Size. I've taken some nice courses with her. And it uses the points that we're going to be first tapping on are acupressure points. So they're energy points that are connected with different parts of our system. So I'm going to give you a preview of those points, and then we're going to do them together. So the first point is on the inside of the eyebrow. And you can either do it on one side or both sides. And so you'll just use some light touch and tap that point. We'll just do a practice run. And there's the side of the eye point over here at the side of your eye. And it's gentle. And then we have the spot below the eye. And then we have a spot below the nose. And then we have a spot under the mouth. And then these next spots I'm going to shift so you can see them a little better. We have some collarbone points that are like if you were wearing a little skinny tie, it would be right there. So below your collarbones. I use both hands for that one. You just have more coverage. And then we have this under the arm point, which you can either lift your arm up and massage. It's about 4 finger widths underneath your armpit, or you can do the chicken dance version and do both sides at the same time. That one, pardon me, that one can use a kind of a stronger touch if you want. And then we have an under the chest point that is literally just like underneath the breast tissue on the lower ribs. And then the final point, you make all 5 fingers kind of like a little laser at the top of your head. Yeah, nice. I will send out a handout for those of you who may not have the handout yet that describes all of these things. So don't feel like you have to take notes on this. You'll have a handout that shows you a visual of the points and the steps to do. So what we'll do is the first thing, I actually didn't show you this one. You're going to cross your hands over. Vest is warm, but it's kind of in the way. And it's not, the collarbone points are here. This one is a little bit further out towards your arm seam. These are neurolymphatic release points. And so what we do here is you can say these things out loud if you want to, or you can just hear me say them. I'm going to do a version that is connected to maybe to feeling overwhelmed or feeling like, I want to say like, I was thinking like, helpless, out of control, like things that you're like, whoa, things are beyond my control now, or feeling stress or anxiety. So I'm going to use some verbiage like that. But if you have some ideas of what you want to focus on, then you can. Oh my goodness, I jumped ahead of myself. I was so ready to just do this. You can still hold that point, but think about, it could be election related stress. If that is something that's present for you, you could do election stress. But if there's something else that's concerning you, you can use that for your focus today. And then give it a rating from 0 to 10. 10 is like, I am max stressed out, max anxious about whatever it is. 0 is like nothing at all. So hopefully you want to work with something that's, probably a 2 or 3, you may not want to mess with it. You want to pick something else like to really make it worth your while. So think of something and literally give it a number. When I do this practice on my own, I write down the number. You don't have to do that, but I write down the number because sometimes my brain likes to trick me and I forget the number or, I get distracted or something. Does everybody have something they want to work with today? Okay. All right. So now we're going to go back to that point. This is the point, and we're going to, you can say it out loud if you want to. Again, if you're at home just doing it on your own, I definitely recommend saying it out loud. It's just going to feel like it has a little bit more oomph. So it's going to be something like this. Even though I'm feeling all this stress about the election, I accept myself and my process. And usually you do this 1 3 times. But you can fill in the blank with your thing. Even though I'm feeling kind of out of control and anxious because there's things beyond my control. Again, word it how you want to. I accept myself. The main thing is to say the thing, and then the acceptance, some kind of like, I'm still okay. I'm still here for myself. So even though I'm feeling like there's a lot of things beyond my control and it makes me feel anxious, I accept myself in this moment. And then the next point, these are kind of a little way to set it. This isn't a choice statement. So it's the side of the hand. So your pinky edge side, like sometimes people call it the karate chop point because it's where your hand would chop a board. And so you're just going to tap that. And now we're going to do a choice statement. Again, listen to it, repeat it if you want to. So even though I have this anxiety over the election, I'm choosing to release it, all of its roots and origins, and all that it means and does to me. Even though I have all this anxiety about things coming up that I can't control, I'm choosing to release it, all of its roots and origins, and all that it means and does to me. Again, you'll have this in your handout. Even though I feel all this stress and anxiety, I'm choosing to release it, all of its roots and its origins, and all that it means and does to me. Okay, so now we're going to go through one round of those points. So we'll do the inside of the eye, the eyebrow point. And you'll just kind of breathe and really feel into what is happening in your body. And then the sides of the eye. And then under the eye. Under the nose. Under the mouth. Collarbones. And so you're just breathing, noticing what's happening in your body. And then under the arms. Good. Under the chest, on the lower ribs, and then the top of the head. So that is one round of the main points. What we do next is something called the Brain Integration Series. It's going to feel kind of weird. There's reasons why we do all the things we do. It's working with your left and right brain and using the eyes and the visual cortex to enact changes. So do the things, even though it might seem kind of goofy. So you're going to put one hand on your heart if you want to, and then the other hand is going to be tapping this point between your ring finger and your pinky finger. So just come light tapping there. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This brain integration series, you're going to open your eyes and then close your eyes and then open them back up. And now look, keep your head where it is, but look down toward the right. You're still tapping, and then look straight ahead. And then keeping your head where it is, bring your eyes down toward the left. Good. Bring your eyes back to the center. And then let your eyes move all the way around a clock. So your head stays where it is, but let your eyes move all the way around a big circle one way. And then all the way around a big circle the other way. Still breathing, still tapping. And now you're going to hum a little tune. That's working with right brain. And now you'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is working with left brain. And then we'll hum a tune again. And then I like to do another like open and close with the eyes. And then you'll complete that tapping. So that's the brain integration series that you sandwich between the 2 rounds of tapping. Now, when we've done this before, or sometimes it's often just repeating another round like we did. But today, for the second round, I wanted to show you something new. And it's called just like the breathe and hold techniques. We're still going to do those same points, but instead of tapping, we're just going to breathe there for a breath or so. I like this version because sometimes if I'm feeling really amped up, the tapping, I love the tapping, but I find that the holding the points can feel even more like settling for my nervous system. So you'll just have this option. So again, you'll just bring your fingers and gently to the inside of the eyebrow and take a breath there. And then bring your fingers to the sides of the eyes and breathe. And then under the eyes. And then under the nose. And then under the mouth. You can just notice how your system is responding to the tapping versus the breathe and hold. And then the collarbone. Good. Under the arm. And you can lift one arm up and just hold. You do both at the same time. Good. Under the chest. So just a breath or even a couple of breaths per point, depending upon how you're doing. And then all four fingers just resting at the top of your head. So then to check in, I like to put my hands at my heart just because that helps me to connect. You could just let your hands rest in any way that's comfortable and tune in again and think about that initial thing you were working on, whether it was the election stress, whatever you gave a number to. And then as you check in and sense your body, what number is it at now? What number is it at now? So just kind of checking in. Good. And then feel free to let that go. If you wouldn't mind showing me what your first number was, just kind of with your fingers. Okay, 10, 7, 8, 7, 7. Okay. And if you want to show me what your number is now. Okay, 2, 4, 2. Holy cow, cut in half, cut down by at least a few, half. Okay, beautiful. Good work. It's kind of an interesting technique if you've never done it before. It can seem like, what in the heck is all this stuff? But we just saw some cool shifts. Nice work. Thanks for just going along that little tapping ride with me. So here's the thing. Occasionally the number, usually it does go down, but occasionally it will go up. So don't get freaked out if that happens, because sometimes if it goes up, it's like it's bringing it up to the surface and we're noticing what we usually damp down. So if it does go up, do another round, the same process. Or if it didn't go down quite enough for you, if you're still feeling a lot of whatever that thing is, if it's usually a 2 or less, I'm kind of like, call it good. If it's still anywhere between like 3 and 10, I'll do another round. And the only difference is, we won't do this today, but the only difference is you're just going to use the word completely in the statements. I completely accept myself. I choose to completely release this anxiety. So that's the only difference between round 1 and 2. You still do all the points. You still do the brain integration series. You still do all the points again and check in. So that's just the way you could do another cycle if you want to. So that's one of the practices that you can have in your toolbox to really feel like you can own and use physical sensations that might be going on, mental, emotional sensations, things that are just frustrating. Like I use it pretty much every day, most days, sometimes more than once a day, depending upon what's up. Like if I'm not feeling calm enough to do like a more traditional meditation, or calm enough to do even a visualization practice that I have, or yoga, like I will start with this, and then it takes the edge off, so then I can actually do my other practices more effectively. It works great on walking trails too, by the way. I do this one hiking a lot. I pause for the eye thing because that's just too discombobulating, but it does. And I've done this with some other folks on walking trails. As long as it's a safe surface, you're not maybe going up and down the hill and not walnuts falling down or something. So find a safe place, but yeah, you can try that outside. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to add a little bit more movement now, because can you still hear me? Okay. Sorry, my earbuds are doing something kind of funny. You're going to make some big signals if you can't hear me for some reason. All right. So sometimes our nervous systems are not even able to sit still and do something like what we just did, right? We might just feel like there's so much energy, and energy is designed to move. Emotion is oftentimes motion, like energy in motion. And so a lot of us, our culture kind of trains us to push emotions down and to not feel those things because they're too scary. But oftentimes, if we can name it, which we do in the tapping, if we can name it, that starts to take the edge off. And if we can do something physically to complete the stress cycle, that can help too. So this is that Yoga for Releasing Stress series. The first part is just shaking it off. And you can do all of this sitting in your chair. That's totally fine too. No matter where you are, you might do a little bit of shaking. And a lot of times using a stronger breath here can help, like a Oh, big sigh. I'll try to keep my voice down actually with the microphone, but some loud sighs as you shake. And you could add a leg in here. So usually at least a minute. You know, your whole practice might just be shaking for several minutes to your favorite song that's going to be a little more upbeat or stress releasing. Shake your other leg if you haven't already. Just shaking, strong breaths. Good. And then we're going to bounce our heels up and down as we let our arms shake. Ah, good. And now let's imagine we had a little shakeometer and we could turn it up to maximum shake speed. So whatever that might be for you. And you can shake your hips and your head and your hands, and you can turn around. You can do whatever you need as wildly or as calmly as you want. Yeah. It looks so silly, but it feels so good. So just for a couple more seconds. And then come back to some residual shakes there. Come back to mountain pose. Feel where your feet are on the ground. And then checking in with what sensations are present now. Sometimes we feel like we have some shaking still happening. Sometimes we feel like more awake, more alive, more circulation, different breath, different heart beating pattern. So just noticing. But to me, what I think is most important is the shift that we can sense in that mental emotional place. Like, how am I feeling just as a human right now? Am I feeling like a little bit lighter? Usually that's the goal. Sometimes it takes more than what we just did. So the next thing we're going to do is going to build on that, and it's the wood chopper. So this one uses a loud vocalization. It uses the ha sound. So for this one, you'll soften your knees, and you can do just arms. If you're seated in your chair, you can do just arms. If you are standing, I would encourage you, this is just a practice one to show you. You're going to breathe in and lift your arms up. As you breathe out, soften your knees, but let your back be kind of long and strong as you pop down. So you don't have to make it a huge forward bend, but you're supporting your back as you do that. So let's do a few rounds of this together. Imagine you're kind of chopping through the stress. This is a safe way to let out some of that stressful energy. Ready? Taking a breath in and then exhaling. Ha. Ha. I'm going to try not to be too loud for you. Ha. Ha. You're chopping through the stress. Let it be as intense as you want or need it to be today. Ha. Let's do one more like that. Ha. Okay. And now we're going to come back. Look at how your hands are clasped. Usually you have one thumb that's kind of on top. Interlace the other way, so the other thumb is on top. It's a non-habitual way, which means it might feel awkward. And let's just do a few more rounds like this. The same thing. Ha, at your own pace. Ha, ha, ha. Last couple. Ha, ha, ha. When that's complete, you can always keep going. That's the beauty of home yoga, is you can keep rolling if you want to, and you can always pause when you want to. But come back to mountain pose. I like to do a little grounding with this one, like a superhero pose. So you could bring hands to hips. If you're standing, you can step your feet a little wider and just feel that space that you are taking up. The superhero that you are. I think it does take superhero energy to just like be a human in this world sometimes. You are a yoga superhuman. All right. So the next movement in our yoga for releasing stress is the standing swinging arm twist. Sometimes we call it empty coat sleeves. Now, if you still had a lot of that kind of raw energy, you could do a ha sound here, kind of slow down the movement. Ha, ha, ha. Or you could just sigh, or you could breathe naturally. Good. So each of these things that we've done so far could be standalone practices. I told you today was going to be like a practice within a practice. So you might just have the space to do the shaking it off. You might just have the space to do a few wood chopper breaths. You might just have the space to do what we're doing now. So take those little mini moments where you can get them. I posted something last week that said a little plus often equals a lot. And I think that's the mindset we should have oftentimes, not that it's a should, but that's helpful, right? Is how can I do all these little tiny things so my nervous system is getting these pings of safety and calm and agency. Like I can do something to help influence how I feel. I can't change everything, but I can do my thing here. All right. So you could do this one as long as you wanted to, but I'm going to guide us to kind of make our way back to mountain pose again. Take a moment and feel the bottoms of your feet. And can you let the weight sink just a little bit more into your heels? You're still balanced, but feel the weight, especially in the heel area. The next movement in this series is the moving mountain. Now, you might be familiar with lots of different arm variations that we do. You can choose a fancy arm variation that you're used to using, but I'm just going to kind of do our Okay, well, I am so sorry that I lost you. Let me get us back here. Okay. I'm not sure what happened. I'm glad y'all are still here. We were going to do moving mountain. That's where we were. Gave you another moment to pause. So the heels and the arms are going to lift simultaneously. And that's all we'll do. So you'll inhale and lift the heels and lift the arms together. And then as you exhale, lower the heels, lower the arms. Maybe they lower together and they complete at the same time. I think I'm actually going to do cactus arms as I lift up. That's going to feel nice for my chest today. And then as you exhale, heels and arms lower. This can all be done in the chair with your heels lifting off the ground and your arms moving to whatever shape feels like it's meeting your body where it is today. Okay, next time we're going to stay and add some micro movements. So go ahead and breathe in and lift up. And then exhale in place. You might even soften part way or all the way on the exhale. And then inhale, lengthen again. So you might even stretch higher, get longer. And then as you exhale and stay in place, soften all or part way. Normal to have some shaking. That's actually a good sign. I'm doing a lot of shaking today. Inhale and lift up. Good. Exhale, soften all the way down. Ah, back to mountain pose. That shaking is called neurogenic tremoring, and it can actually be a really helpful sign that the nervous system is kind of like taking the little release valve off your pressure cooker or Instant Pot. So again, I'm trying to stay really true to Yoga for Releasing Stress series. So the next one in that series is to bring the legs a little wider. I'll show you both versions. If you're in your chair, I'm going to show you the seated version, then we'll do this all together. So if you're in your chair, you don't need to step your feet quite as wide. You could still bring your feet a little wide, but you'll inhale, lift up, and then exhale, kind of slide your hands down the sides of the legs, but the belly stays drawn in. So you're not in the big rounding forward bend. So if you're in your chair, that's the version. You can even lift your arms up like we're going to do. You could inhale and reach up and then exhale, slide down. So that's the seated version. And if you're doing the standing version, it'll be very similar. So let's just all do this together for a few rounds and breathe. So you'll inhale, reach your arms up. And then as you exhale, you can come through cactus and then do that bowing forward as your head softens a bit. And let your back be long as you come up. So you could come up through cactus too. Let your back be nice and long as you breathe in and come up. Reach your arms overhead if you'd like. And then on the exhale, we'll come through cactus again and bow forward, wide-legged forward bend. So we usually do this one 3, 4, 5 times before we stay. Oftentimes, forward bends are put in this category of what's called Lungana, which means reducing. Sometimes you could equate it to calming. That's not quite the right translation, but reducing, like it's reducing that stress energy. And then the next time that you're in the forward bend, I invite you to stay if you'd like. And then just follow your breath as it comes in and out. See if you can tuck your chin so your head is heavy. I'm just going to sit upright so my earbuds don't fall out, but breathing. So you notice we started a little more intensely with the shaking and the wood chopper, and now we're kind of guiding the body into a little bit more of a still place. This will be our last breath here. And then with your inhale, you'll keep the navel drawn in toward the spine so your back has support. Lengthen your spine to come all the way back up. And then we simply come back to mountain pose. You could also, depending upon how you were practicing, if you were needing to save energy and you're like, "Ooh, I'm really wiped out," you could lie down for this next piece too. So we're going to be at mountain pose. And feel the support under your feet again. Really see if you can give the weight of your body even more to the floor here. You give the weight of the body to the floor. And notice now, we're going to do a little alignment, just kind of check in with different places in our body. So if you can notice the roof of your mouth and feel the roof of the mouth kind of centered over the area of the diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm. And then can you feel how the respiratory diaphragm is centered over like the center of the pelvic floor, the pelvic diaphragm? And these may or may not be new terms to you. You might think, I'm not sure if exactly where that is, but just kind of going with the fact that we have these three places that we can connect together to have this, have more space. And then eventually just giving things a little wiggle and shake and noticing how you're doing. We just did, that was technically 6 poses with shaking it off, wood chopper, swinging twist, moving mountain, wide-legged forward bend, and then mountain pose. So 6 poses, doesn't take too long. I'm gonna show you a couple more things though. We're gonna kind of amp things back up again. This next practice is called, are you ready for it? Angry eyes punching out. Rawr. There's certain places you don't want to do this, right? Like, this is not one you do in the library unless it was like a sanctioned yoga class or something. It technically comes from Qigong, but this is a great one to release some of that really frustrated anger, rage, intense emotions, in anxiety in a healthy way. So I'll show you how we're going to do it. You do make angry eyes. So the one rule is you don't want to point your angry eyes at someone else. So I'll be looking above the screen, but you can really think about something that's kind of ticking you off. Just like harness that ferocity, and you're going to have angry eyes. And then we're going to do some punches. We're going to practice here, and then I'll stand up. So you're going to do a punch like with each hand forward, and there'll be a ha sound with each. Ha, ha. And you're going to go across, ha, ha. Make it be really deliberate. You're going to punch up, ha, ha. And then you're going to punch down, ha, ha. And we're going to do the whole thing again. Out, out, across, up, up, down, down. In real time, though. You can do all of this in your chair if you want to. So it can be helpful to have some water nearby potentially, because it's really a nice clearing for the throat too. All right, here we go. When you're ready, we're going to go out, out, across, across, up, up, down, down. So go ha, ha, then go across, ha, ha, go up, ha, ha, down, ha, ha, out, ha, ha. Find your own pace though, across. Go up, ha, ha, down, ha, ha. Those fierce eyes out, ha, across, ha, ha, go up, ha, ha, down, ha, ha. Last round, out, ha, ha, across, ha, ha, up, ha, ha, down, ha, ha. And I always feel like there should be like a little roar at the end of that or something as we tap into our strength. But we'll come back to mountain pose. And you could do that hands on the hip with the feet a little wider, superhero version, just to ground that strong energy. That's a strong practice. And it may not be one that some days you might not have energy for that. Like that may not be the pose if you're feeling really low energy. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend moving up to that eventually if you are building the energy. But it's a good one to start with. You're feeling that kind of intense frustration, anger, anxiety. Okay, so again, just within a practice. This next one, we're going to step the feet wide again. And what we want to do with this one is we want to do a practice bend with your knees. And as you bend your knees, you want to make sure that they're going in the same direction as your toes. So knees and toes go together. And this is 5-pointed star with, all right. So when you're ready, breathe in and send your arms up toward the sky, that whole taking up space concept again. And then as you breathe out, start to soften your knees, bend your knees and bend your elbows and come into goddess pose. It could be any amount. Good. Breathe in and extend again into that 5-pointed star, like reach to the corners of your room and then really sink. Good. Sometimes we'll do a ha sound here as we come down. Good. So breathe in, 5-pointed star. Good. Feel free to go faster or slower than I'm going, and then breathe out as you come into the shape. Nice. Okay, we're going to stay the next time. So this time, again, I'm just showing you some options that are going to help us to release stress. So if you'd like, you could do a lion's breath here. Lion's breath is a little different than what we've been doing. You're going to let your eyes look up towards your forehead. Take a breath in through your nose, and then when you breathe out, stick your tongue out and make a roaring sound. We're going to do 3 lion's breaths here if you want to. So breathing in, look up towards your forehead and breathe out. You can kind of sink into the pose even more if you want to. Inhale, lift up a little, lift your eyes up again, and then exhale with the tongue. If you can curl your fingers like cat claws. Last one. Good. Reach up again next time. So much space. And then let your arms float back down. You could yoga walk your feet back together. So we've been doing, I probably wouldn't do all of these in a row unless you really did have a ton of that stress energy that you were needing to burn off. So you certainly could. But again, this is designed to give you a whole bunch of options to play with. I'm going to come to my chair for this next one, but you could certainly sit on the floor on a cushion if you would like. Okay, so we're going to move into something that might seem like it's the opposite of what we've just done. We've just done lots of big movements, lots of roars and sounds and things. The principle is to meet the mood and then gently guide it in the direction you want to go. You'll probably hear me say that like 12,000 times, but it is a good principle to keep in mind. So if you're feeling really raw, do those intense things, and then eventually do things that are a little bit more settling and grounding and calming. So that's what this is going to be. It's the idea is we're placing the positive emotion that we are wanting in the body. So if we start with what we were doing with the tapping, we are working with maybe overwhelm, stress, anxiety, those kind of things. I'm just going to use the word peace as the opposite of that for myself today. But if you have another word that better describes it for you, then feel free to do that. So you're going to have your hands cupped upward. And imagine you could catch that peace, or whatever the positive emotion is, in your hands, like it's raining down peace. Take a breath in and receive that. I'm going to look opposite of you, but then when you exhale, take your right hand and bring it over to the left side of your chest, like you're installing that in, and let your left hand just rest either on your body or on the floor, on the chair. Good. And then breathe in and come back to the center again. So your palms will cup upward again. Receive that peace or whatever it is. And then exhale, bring your left hand over to the right side of your chest and gently look out over your right shoulder. Right arm is just very chill and relaxed here. And we're going to move with the breath again. So breathing in, back to center where we started, receiving that peace. And then exhaling, twisting over toward the left, installing that peace in. Good. So you might be going faster or slower than I am. I find it's helpful to go from side to side before we stay in the pose. Good. So no rush, but the next time that you're twisting over toward the left, there's the option to stay here. So you can look out over your left shoulder. With your inhale, can you feel how your spine gets a little bit taller? And with your exhale, bring your gaze even a little bit more to that left eye. Little tiny rotation. Good. One last breath on this side. Excuse me. And then inhale and come back to the center, palms cupped upward. And then as you breathe out, let the twist kind of start with the belly and then left hand over to the right side of the chest, right hand just relaxing wherever it can receive support. And so I'm going to offer another option here. As you breathe out, you could hear the word peace in your mind just silently, a little silent mantra. So you'd inhale where you are and then just exhale and hear the word peace, long and drawn. Peace. So a nice little silent mantra. You're layering the mantra with the hand movement and the intention. Last breath on this side. And inhale and come back to the center. We'll bring both palms upward again. And then reach both arms up toward the sky. You could come to cactus if that feels better, but if reaching the arms tall feels available today. That's how you're creating space through the side body. Good. And then just as you exhale, let your arms float back down. We'll do a few little rolls through the shoulders. And this is not by any means the only options that we could play with when we're feeling like we need to bring ourselves back to center. But they're some of my favorite ones that folks really typically enjoy. So I think what I'm going to offer next is the legs up the chair version. And if you were in a bed, I do encourage bed yoga. I think bed yoga is amazing. If you're in bed, you probably would take about three bed pillows kind of stacked on top of each other to let your legs rest. You could be in a chair with another chair in front of you. If the chair is in front of you, make sure that try to have your knee joint be supported. And then I'm going to show you the other option. I know I'm telling you lots of different things here. I like to have, for a sense of groundedness, I like to have a folded blanket or a pillow like on top of my belly or on top of my hips, like my pelvis. So you could play around with that, or a warm blanket because you might get chilled later. So if you're using a chair, I did this on my couch last night. I just took the back cushion off and lay down on my couch and did this. If it's a hard chair or cold chair, you could put a blanket over that. I like to have a blanket underneath my sacrum too. And then definitely see if you can have your knees supported as you rest. And your arms could be any way that feels helpful. Sometimes it feels nice to have the hands at the belly or the hands at the heart, out toward the sides in a cactus or down in a V. Palms up is oftentimes considered like receptive or opening, and palms down is typically considered a grounding option. So you can choose palms up, palms down. And I'm going to stay upright just so I can guide you. So we're doing this version as a way to purposely release the psoas. In next month's guide, I'll allude to this, I'll mention it more. We'll dive deeper next month. But the psoas is very important muscle in your body. In fact, some people call it more of a sense organ than a muscle. And it connects your upper body to your lower body. And it is the first muscle that engages with the fight or flight response. It's one of the hip flexors. It just immediately brings you into that fight mode or that curl and protection fetal position mode. So the psoas, sometimes we use the word stretching, but it's more about letting it release. You can't really muscle the psoas around and have it work to impact the stress response positively. So it's more of just an allowing, creating the conditions around the body, the psoas, the muscles to allow that your nervous system to feel safe enough for it to release. So really all we can do with all of this is to create the conditions with our practices. to then allow that desired result to hopefully unfold. So we're going to practice. We're going to add a mini meditation here while we're resting. And this mini meditation will be one of mindful self-compassion. Before we move into that, let yourself land in this new shape that you're in. Maybe there's some other wiggles or movements that you need to make. Ensure that your body feels really supremely supported, really nurturing yourself. And you're welcome to shift out of the shape at any time. Really, really getting that support. And then can you really sink into all of that support behind you and under you? Like letting all of the weight of your body really rest into that support. And oftentimes it comes in layers. And then noticing your breath here. We did a lot of intense breathing earlier, but this is the time to let the breath be nice and soft. You might notice how every inhale brings this sense of expansion through the belly and the ribs. And every exhale, there's kind of this sinking, contracting, a drawing in. And you might notice that your exhale naturally wants to extend. One of the main rules with breath work is that we don't force the breath. We want it to feel natural and easy, like we're still within that window of tolerance. And so you might, again, let the exhale just naturally, slowly stretch out. So it's a little longer than your inhale. And then can you, in that same way that you're still feeling settled and supported, releasing more and more of your weight to the earth, your breath naturally moving like this wave coming in and going out. Noticing now with kindness, with compassion, with care, are there any places that your body might want to soften even more? Can you soften the space between your eyebrows, your forehead, your eyes themselves just resting? And softening through the jaw. Oftentimes we need to come back to these areas more than once. Softening jaw, softening your tongue, letting your tongue just kind of feel like it's floating in the mouth. And you soften your neck and let your shoulders sink even more deeply down into the earth or into the socket, arms into the shoulder socket. Can you relax even more through the belly, just allowing the belly to experience that freedom of movement that happens with the breath when we start to move into more of our rest and digest mode? And then can you feel the back body, in particular, like your seat? Can you feel like that kind of expand? So when we're tight, everything is like clenched inward. Can you soften a little bit through the glutes and imagine that line around the body is getting a little wider, like we're kind of melting into the space around us even more. And then letting go through the toes, letting your legs feel nice and heavy and supported here. And so noticing now, oh my goodness, I'm sorry for that loud sound. We're going to move through the general structure of a mindful self compassion practice while you're still resting here. So, the first thing is to bring that quality of mindfulness, which you've been doing all class today, of noticing what is present. And sometimes what we notice is hard things. Like I notice my shoulders are tight. I notice I have kind of a clenching in my belly. I notice I have these thoughts that are kind of looping around. Whatever those things are, just to name it silently or out loud to yourself, like you're acknowledging it, like, yes, this is the reality of where things are today. It's not judging or shaming or shoulding. It's just, yep, that's the way things are right now. So it could be physical sensations or anything else you're observing. And then we bring the quality of compassion and direct it toward ourselves. There's a lot of empirical research, scientific research about all the health benefits, mental, emotional, physical health benefits, relational health benefits connected to building that skill of self compassion. As we build more self compassion through our practice, we have quite a few positive outcomes that can result. That's something you can check into later. But for now, if your friend was feeling or noticing what you just noticed, a good friend that you just loved, or a grandchild, a neighbor, a niece, and nephew, someone that you just really love unconditionally, what would you do, say, or offer them? Sometimes what we experience is beyond words, right? There's no words that can fix it. So sometimes it's just the presence or the acknowledgement of like, that is hard, or that is a moment of suffering. That is that is rough, or even just a ooh. So you're acknowledging with kindness, or maybe there's some words that come to mind, like I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together. Like literally those words or phrases you would share to a loved one, a dear one, when you are in your best, most wise, highest self place, offering them genuine care and compassion and attention. And redirect those words or energies toward you now. Oftentimes it is those simple things like, ah, that's hard. That is hard. Maybe it's even a hand at the heart. That is hard. Or a hand at the cheek or a little pat. So sometimes self touch, kind, gentle self touch can be a component. And then any words that arise in your mind. I'm here. You're not alone. And so, if this is a practice that feels challenging for you, know that you are not alone. There's nothing wrong. It's normal to have something called backdraft, which feels like I'm feeling the opposite of compassion for myself now. This is tricky. So, know that you're not alone with that. It's okay. It's a normal piece that can sometimes come up. And the third piece of mindful self compassion is this idea of common humanity. So it brings it from a self focused practice into a more expansive practice, of which we're still a part. So, this common humanity piece is a recognition that there are very likely many other people who either have experienced what you're experiencing in the past or even now, that you're not alone with this challenge, even though it might feel like it, even though parts of ourselves like to tell us that we're completely alone and nobody else would understand. Know that as you expand your awareness outward, as one of however many 7 billion people on this planet, there are other folks who very likely feel this same challenge and that you're not alone. And then any other words or phrases that might come to mind. If you're familiar with the loving kindness metta meditation, you could direct those toward yourself here if you'd like a little more structure. So I'll guide those here. But again, in your own practice, you may just authentically in your mind come up with those nurturing phrases or reassurances. But if you'd like to direct these phrases toward yourself, they fit really well here too. May I be safe. And I'm going to add the phrase in the midst of this, which is a line that I learned from meditation teacher Christina Feldman. So I'm going to add in the midst of this. May I be safe in the midst of this challenging situation. May I be happy and healthy, even in the midst of this, whatever this might be. May I be happy and healthy, even in the midst of this. So you're not denying, you're not bypassing the reality. You're just you're creating more space, more space. May I be peaceful, even in the midst of this. May I be peaceful, even in the midst of this. And may I live with ease, even in the midst of this. May I live with ease, even in the midst of this. And just noticing what it was like to receive those words of kindness, to receive those kind gestures through this practice of mindful self-compassion. And then I'm going to close. I'm going to bring both hands to my heart. You're welcome. I'm going to just leave y'all resting like you are. So please don't feel like you need to move quite yet. So I'm going to close with this. It's a mantra. It's a kind of a prayer, a blessing all in one. It's from the Sanskrit, and I'll do my best to pronounce it. There's nuances with the language that I know I'm not picking up on, but I'll say it in Sanskrit and then I'll translate it into the English version that's most common. So here's the words: Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. And oftentimes the translation is this: may all beings everywhere be happy and healthy and peaceful. And in some way, may my thoughts, my words, and my actions contribute to that happiness and that peacefulness for all. And so just receiving those words, receiving the gift of your practice, that mantra always brings up a lot of emotion for me because it's a big practice. So I'm going to close things out for now. Feel free to stay as long as you like in that position, trusting that you'll transition when you need to. It's been lovely practicing with you today, and I hope that you have a peaceful, present week and weeks to come. Take good care.